too satisfied with this food. When you're talking about the popcorn in the theater, the stale popcorn in the theater, yeah, we have these associations with food. Like food is a really, really strong, it holds a lot of memories, right? I think we talked about this last time. It holds a lot of memories. And so we kind of like default to these things where, like, I go to the theater, I'm going to have popcorn or M&Ms or whatever. And because of that association, we often do it without thinking. And on top of that, when you're watching a movie,
Ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready for our guest. Give her a round of applause. Lynn Fan in the house. Hello, Lynn. I love that
I love it.
smile. Love the energy, right? Yeah. So, Lynn, let's just jump right into it because we've spoken before and we kind of have an idea, or I have a better idea of what intuitive eating is. But for people who are tuning in for the first time, can you just give them a little breakdown first of yourself, who you are, what makes you, an expert or makes you knowledgeable on this subject, and then just a little bit about your history.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me, Lion. Um, two times the charm, right? So my name is Lynn. I go by the pronouns she, her. I am a body acceptance coach, and I use the intuitive eating framework to really help my clients get to that point where they can love and accept their bodies the way they are, not having to lose weight, not having to focus on diets and anything like that before they can actually start loving and appreciating themselves. So I am also a certified intuitive eating counselor. I did my training with the OGs, with these two dietitians based in the US. They created this framework in the 90s when they realized that the clients that they were serving were coming back to them after a period of time. Like they would get onto these diet plans and improve their diets and lose weight, but ultimately they would come back. And so these two dietitians were like, wait, what's going on? Like, why are these people coming back? Like, it's great that they're coming back, but why? And so they started looking into the research, and they realized that, oh, wait, like diets are actually not something that is sustainable. It's actually going against biology. And so they created this framework called intuitive eating, and it's also known as the anti-diet. And so rather than focusing on restricting to lose weight, we focus on the internal body signals. What does our body tell us about what it needs, what it's craving, what it's actually satisfied with? And that is the answer
Yes.
to the question, I guess.
Right, right. There you go. What's your one question? And I love a couple of things in there, almost like this new Taylor Swift anti-hero, right? The anti-diet, right? Because it is one thing that I always talk about often when things are passed down generational to generations, right? It doesn't
Mm,
always mean it's correct because, four generations prior could have been taught a different way, which, could have been incorrect or it could have been correct for them at that time. But as time progresses, so does
mm,
technology, so does everything else. So maybe some traditions could change, right? From diets, and I also love the fact, like you said, they said, why do they keep coming back? Versus just saying, hey, that's more money, right? Let's just keep them coming back. They wanted that show
yeah.
caringness. They wanted to figure out a way of making their systems work and stuff. And I absolutely
Mm,
love that. So basically, in a nutshell, if I'm a layman person just listening to this or just hearing it for the first time, I'm hearing basically intuitive eating. Just listen to my body, listen to my spirit. If I'm feeling, maybe drained today, maybe take a
mm,
journal and see what's making me feel that way. Okay, maybe I ate a lot of red meat for this week, and now I'm
mm.
feeling, uh, you know, my energy's drained, or maybe I need when I eat a lot more fruits or something, or I feel more energetic. Is that kind of the crux or where it's taking us to?
Yeah, essentially, right? Like, so a lot of us focus on these external messages that we've received in our lifetime about what we should eat. Like, all of these diet plans, like no carbs, I don't know, full fat, like raw food, all of this stuff. And what we forget is that our body holds so much wisdom, right? So instead of like relying on a plan that tells us like how much we should eat, what time we should eat at, it's tapping into ourselves and saying, okay, what do I actually feel like? What's actually going to get me full? What's actually going to satisfy my craving? Because if you have a craving, like if you've ever had a moment when you're like, oh, I want to have a bag of chips, and you decide to have like a bag, like, like a bag of apple crisps instead, like it's just not the same thing, right? And so what happens is you end up getting the apple crisps because you think you're being good. And then the craving hasn't been satisfied. And so you go back to that bag of chips. So in the end, you're eating more than you actually wanted to if you had just eaten those bag of chips in the first place. So intuitive eating is listening to your body. There are some difficulties with listening to your body for some people because of various reasons. Like if we've had, a lot of diet culture ingrained in us, like if we've like followed a lot of food rules, for example, we've learned to listen to external sources instead of coming back to ourselves. So there's a way that you can kind of train your body to like start listening to yourself again. Or if you've had any sort of trauma and you've got like body dissociation, or even if you're neurodivergent, that also is a bit of a challenge to listen to your body, but there are ways around it, right? So it's listening to your body, but it's also having rational thought be part of it as well. But it's recognizing what is rational and what are food rules. Like, what are these rules that I've been living with? So it's like differentiating between the two. So it's like, it's listening to your mind, but also mostly listening to your body.
Yeah, I remember in our conversation as we were talking, and I started researching and learning more because I love to, even if I
Mm,
don't know what a subject is directly, I love to read, learn a little bit more, just so I'm somewhat informed. And I remember there was a point where we there was a talk about a study of like popcorn, and people would sit and eat popcorn in a movie theater or something, but they deliberately put like stale popcorn on the
mm,
top or something, and they would see that people would still eat it without even thinking about it because it was situational, right? You were in a movie theater, so it's your brain, your body telling you it's kind of what you're supposed to do, and so you're not even thinking about eating.
yeah.
And they would like tell people, the popcorn was stale after the study, and they're like, no, we didn't notice. People were eating stale popcorn because our brain just said you're supposed to do this. That's listening
Yeah.
to your body. Or, ladies and gentlemen, I'm gonna tell you a little trick that I learned that they do. You go grocery shopping, and first off, never go grocery shopping on an empty stomach. Never.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Totally agree.
But you're going to finish all your shopping and you're going to be at the checkout line. They always put the candies or those little things right there for you, the last thing for you to see.
Yeah.
Resist it, fight the urge. So now
Yeah.
I'm sitting here, Lynn. I'm a person who's never heard this before. I'm driving in my vehicle. I'm taking a walk on my morning stroll. I'm listening to this podcast. I'm hearing intuitive eating. I'm kind of interested. Where do I start, right? What's kind of maybe some steps that you would guide someone, coach them when they come to you and say, hey, let's take you down this path and kind of
Mm.
set an analysis or set something for you to see what works for you.
Mm. So this is a little bit tricky because it really depends on the person, but um, just to, I guess to start, I guess like, it's important to lay out the fact that intuitive eating has 10 principles. So there are 10 different principles that, that might be challenging for people. Like people are on different journeys. And so what I would do is encourage people to actually start looking into those principles to kind of like really pinpoint which principles kind of like stand out for them. But I know that it's super overwhelming because like all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, like 10 principles, like are these just not like other food rules? And it's actually no, like these are just guidelines, right? Like, so one of the reasons why it's called the anti-diet is that there are no rules with intuitive eating. There are just guidelines that will kind of like create awareness within yourself. So there's no like, busting your balls, like if you've like failed at something or if you've broken a food rule, right? Like all of this is based in self-compassion. So if you are finding it challenging to follow a guideline, it's really like taking a step back and creating that self-compassion for yourself. Like being gentle with yourself. Treating yourself or talking to yourself as you would your partner or your child or your pet, right? Like a lot of us like just beat ourselves up. Like it's the first thing we do, like calling ourselves names and stuff. And there's there is the encouragement of doing none of that in intuitive eating. It's really just giving yourself that grace and that compassion. Um, so with the 10 principles, there are things like rejecting the diet mentality, making peace with food, being aware of the food police, respecting your body. Um, if all of this is overwhelming for you, the one principle that I would encourage people to start kind of like exploring and playing around with is satisfaction. So when you're actually eating, are you satisfied with this food? When you're talking about the popcorn in the theater, the stale popcorn in the theater, yeah, we have these associations with food. Like food is a really, really strong, it holds a lot of memories, right? I think we talked about this last time. It holds a lot of memories. And so we kind of like default to these things where like I go to the theater, I'm going to have popcorn or M&Ms or whatever. And because of that association, we often do it without thinking. And on top of that, when you're watching a movie, you're distracted. You're not focusing on the food. You're focused on the movie. And like the food is just kind of secondary or even tertiary, right? So focus on the satisfaction. Like if you actually removed the film, if you removed the sound and the visuals and the person beside you and the darkness, and you actually focused on that food, are you satisfied? I bet you more people would be aware that that popcorn was stale.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where like when we're talking about that, and I spoke on this last time in reference to the memories of food as a kid and
Mm,
vegetables, right? And so I started integrating small steps, right? Cope with the emotions and dealt with it. What's my emotions with this vegetable? It's back into my childhood, the trauma of it, the eating,
mm,
forcing to be ate and so forth. So as a doubt, I didn't eat it, and I was like, okay, well, I still need to do it, but I can't force myself because then it reminds me of being in my childhood, being force eating. So
yeah.
slowly, one vegetable that I liked, anything, one little small portion per meal, right? Then introduce
Mm,
maybe a little bit of chopped broccoli into that corn,
mm,
for example. Corn's what I like. So I would chop up broccoli, put a little bit in there, and slowly got my palate, slowly got my body and mind used to eating it. Oh, okay, this broccoli doesn't taste as bad. Then it went to a small full piece of broccoli here and there. And then what I would do
yeah.
is jokingly, my wife and I would sit down, and I've actually literally got pictures of these. I would pick up a piece of broccoli on a fork and take a video and smile while I was eating it, like I was forced to eat it. And, but literally like that, right? And I was like, you know what? Let me make peace with this. Let me, get in touch with that emotion. So
Yeah.
even sweets was a big thing growing up. And so now
Mm.
I can't have sweets as much, which is crazy. I'm supposed to have vegetables, but I don't eat vegetables, but I eat sweets, and I'm supposed to have sweets. Anyways, I digress. What I do
These are
is
rules, by the way.
yeah. Oh, look at that. Didn't even know it. And yeah, like last time we talked about, I didn't even know I was doing some of this. I was journaling, and that's why I mentioned that
Yeah.
earlier. I was write down how I felt after certain foods. I felt sluggish, and but
Mm,
something also I noticed too when we sit down, emotional eating. Right, you eat because a hard day, a tough day, right?
mhm,
But one of the things I really like about this is that it gives me the ability to know that I am working towards something. Like the sweets, I have a piece of paper up around the house. Hey, your health is
mm,
most important. So when I walk by it, I see when I go to the fridge why I shouldn't get that sweet as much. Or I also do this. I will force myself to drink, for example, like 3 glasses of water for each
mm,
little snack cake or something, for example. So
mm.
even though I'm not always supposed to have a snack cake, but in my brain, I'm telling myself, hey, you did something healthy to get, maybe something not as healthy, right? So I'm like, it's
Ah,
crazy.
I have so much to say about this lion.
Uh oh, dig in, please dig in on me. Let's hear it.
Okay, where do I start? So, I mentioned that one of the principles was making peace with food, right? So, when I say to you, lion, food is food. There's no such thing as good food or bad food, unhealthy food, healthy food. What do you think of?
I think that society has told me otherwise for so many years that I automatically believe that there is.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. We've absolutely been conditioned to believe that there
Mm,
is good food, bad food, junk food, healthy food, all of this stuff. So, one of the principles is making peace with food, which means that we're taking away the moral value of food. And this is really difficult for a lot of people. So, I'm telling you, hey, You can give yourself unconditional permission to eat anything you want. Most people will probably say, what would you say?
Like anything? Yes.
Yeah, anything, yes, or anything. Oh no, like I can't trust myself, or
Okay.
like Lynn, you're saying something really wild. Like really, what? I can eat anything. So the thing is when we put different food on different pedestals, we're giving it more value. Like we're actually creating a specialness around it. We're making it kind of like, ooh, this can be off limits, like, or like this is a treat, or it's decadent. Like a lot of marketing, if you look at marketing around food, it'll use a lot of like adjectives that make things feel like a guilty pleasure, or it's just a treat, and what that does is it makes it more special. And when you are told that you can't have something, what is it that you are going to want? You're
Yeah,
probably going to want the thing that you're told that you can't have,
exactly.
right? So, like there was a study I think with these kids. They were given two bowls of M&Ms. So one was red, one was yellow. I can't remember which one was which now, but they were told that they couldn't have, let's say, the yellow M&Ms. They could have as many red M&Ms as possible, but no yellow M&Ms. At the end of the study, they found that the yellow M&Ms, there were less of them. So the thing that they were told that they couldn't have, of course, that was what they actually wanted. And we know that M&Ms, like they all taste the same, right? Like there is no freaking difference. They're not Skittles. Um, so when we make food to have different values, we put different values on it, we then treat them as different. But if we treated it all the same, like if I had an apple versus an apple pie versus, like, I don't know, like an apple sundae, or I don't know, like it's all the same. And so when we remove that judgment, we then also remove the possibility of feeling guilt and feeling shame, right? When we give
Yeah.
ourselves that permission, um, we don't feel bad about it, and then we can actually enjoy the thing, right? Like when we have the shame and guilt, what changes the whole experience of eating the food. Like when I am feeling bad about myself while I'm eating whatever it is, like an ice cream sundae, like I'm not going to appreciate the ice cream sundae as much, right? Like I'm not going to focus on the creaminess of the ice cream, or like the sweetness and the chewiness of the brownie while I'm eating. I'm going to be focused on the fact that, oh crap,
Mhm.
like I shouldn't be eating this, like, and so
Yeah.
giving ourselves that permission, and also taking away the specialness of it, right? Like when we buy, let's say we buy a bag of chips and we have it in our house, we think, oh shoot, like I have that bag of chips. It's like, it's calling my name. It's special. It's just that one bag of chips. So we think, oh, we're just gonna have a couple of chips. And then it's like, well, I already started, so I'm just gonna have a couple more. And it's like, well, if I just finish this, I'm not gonna buy another bag of chips. So it creates that specialness again, where it's like, oh, there's this lack. So, at one point I'm not gonna have any chips, so I have it now. So I may as well like make the most of it. And then later, I just won't expose myself to it. And then so again, like that creates the perfect environment for the shame and guilt to come back in.
Listen, you're dropping dimes. You're dropping knowledge. I love it, right? Someone's out there listening right now saying, man, that sounds just like me, right? That's exactly right. And this is why we
Mm,
do this because, we can reach out to many people who've tried many diets, many everything they see on the commercials. And I'm listening to you because you'll watch a commercial for ice cream and they'll put clouds around it and they'll put anything to make it seem like,
yeah.
wow, I'll be in heaven if I eat this ice cream or
Yeah,
something
and they never do
crazy.
it with
Yeah.
salad. They
No,
never do
right?
it with salad. So it's
Right.
like, like, and through diet culture, we've been told that we should eat all of these things, like, going back to your relationship with vegetables, right? Like when we've been on diets, we've been told that we need to eat steamed broccoli and like boiled
Mhm.
potatoes, like, things with no flavor. And so when you actually start exploring and being curious about like different ways to prepare the food, or like adding different seasoning and spices, like,
Ah,
and really change things up, it's like, oh shoot, like what I thought I didn't like, I actually do like.
Mhm.
Or, you can explore and figure out, oh shit, no, I don't actually like this. And that's okay. Right. But it's like approaching all of these foods with like curiosity again. It's
Right.
kind of like when we're kids, like children, like I think you have kids of your own, right?
Yes.
When they're young and they're eating, like they're just full of curiosity, right? Like they know what they like and what they don't like. If they don't like something, they're going to freaking tell you.
Yeah. Especially a 2-year-old, they're eating anything off the floor. So
The experimentation and the curiosity, like, somehow
yes,
along the way, we've lost that.
yeah.
Not that I
I'm
encourage people to eat things off of the floor, but
right. 3-second rule, some people. So I'm gonna I'm gonna say this, and I'm gonna say it slow this time because I said it once before in another episode, and someone wrote in and said, "How did you say that on air or whatever?" So, and I said it in reference to eating. Make sure you take your time and masticate with your food.
Yes,
I
yes, I
s-
love that.
I said that before, and somebody said, "How could you say masturbate on air and not give us a warning?" I was like, I didn't. Did I say masturbate? Well, I said it twice now, but and I had to go back and listen to it. And I said, oh no, I said master. They didn't know what masticate. For those who don't know,
Masticate,
and again,
yes.
this is not anyone being smarter or not knowing what it means. Some people just don't know. Um, take your time, chew your food. I think they say 21 times or something like that to enjoy the food before just taking 3, 4 bites and swallowing.
Yeah, I mean, like again, chewing for 21 times, like that's another rule, right? So like, but you're totally right in actually slowing down the process of eating,
Right.
right? Like take at least one meal a day and just really enjoy that meal, right? Like so often we're so distracted, right? We're on our phones, we're
Mhm.
working, we're like in a meeting, we're taking care of the kids. Who has time to actually sit down and enjoy their food? But when you do, it really changes the experience of eating, right? Like you're more
Yeah.
aware of like the textures and the temperature and the smell and like how it feels on your tongue and the sound that it makes in your ears. Like there's so many, like our senses are all involved, but we don't pay attention to most of them.
Right. Absolutely. And you don't want to end up getting
Emotional damage.
you don't want to get emotionally damaged with your food, right? You don't want to have to look at a certain type of food and be like, "Oh, you make me feel so." so, so I absolutely love this because any resources, any knowledge, anything that can benefit and bring some positivity to someone's life, I'm all for it. How about you take a moment and let everyone who's listening know how they can reach you? Maybe any programs, courses, anything you're offering for them to come to your world, your website, anything. Let them know how can they reach out to you.
Yeah. So if people want to follow me on Instagram, my handle is at bona.fide.life. I think we'll have it in the show notes later. So I'm not going to spell it out for you. And my website is bonafidelifecoaching.com. At the moment, I do one-to-one coaching with my clients, but in 2023, the plan is to have some group coaching because I find that there's so much power in sharing our stories and realizing that, hey, like we're not alone. Like this whole like diet industry has been built on our insecurities. The diet industry has been created so that we actually fail because if we think about it, if you go on a diet and you lose weight, you don't attribute the success to yourself. You attribute the success to the diet, right? But when you don't lose weight, it's not the diet that you're blaming. You're blaming yourself. So if you think about it, the diet industry is really messed up. Like, and it really like affects our mental health and our physical health. And so one of the reasons why I'm doing this is to help people not only just love and accept their bodies, but also to have a better relationship with food and to recognize that diet culture is toxic and we can get away from that. We can unlearn all of that and really come back to ourselves.
Absolutely love it. And yes, all those will be in the show notes. And I'm gonna throw a little small plug in there because when you were speaking on that, I was like, you know what, you would absolutely be great. And I'll make an introduction and y'all can see how to do this. But my wife's podcast, she recently just rebranded and structured her name and her podcast, and it's called Dope Ass Queens. And
Ah,
yeah,
I love it.
and it's all about women empowerment, looking at yourself differently, your body, loving yourself and your body. And so I think that would be a great fit as well. So that is a message, ding, you do a little sound, people remember it more. So hang up for just a second. I'm gonna go ahead and do a little sponsorship and get these bills paid, and then I'll be right back with you. Okay? Thank you so
Awesome.
much.
Thank you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for tuning into another episode of J1Q. Just one question. What's your question? That question could be so many things in life. It could be about from your eating, from your mentality, anything. All I'm asking is what the world is going through today, take some time, self care. Take 10 minutes if you have to. My wife and I were jokingly talking about this the other day. She was doing an episode of podcasting and she was talking to a guest and she said, my husband, he told me, because I asked him, why are you in the bathroom so long? And he told me, like, I'm not using the bathroom. I go in there, I shut the lights off, and it's my quiet time away from all of the world, right? Take 10, 15 minutes to go journal, to go just read a book. Take some time to fold laundry. Some people find that relaxing. No matter what you do, take care of yourself and each other. And as I always say, keep living while you are alive.
Thank you for listening to Just One Question. I know you enjoyed the show because you made it this far. If you want to hear more, subscribe, share, and don't forget to give us a 5-star review. Now, what's your one question?